great morning, and great, excuse me, great morning, Facebook, and great morning, YouTube, and soon to be great morning also on Instagram. Okay, we had a little bit of a technical glitch, but we're not worried about it. We are now back in the house and we're ready to go. I want to thank you all for your patience. Thank you for your love and just thank you for your consideration. And thanks for taking out the time just to sit and just spend some time with us. We both really appreciate your time. It is valuable. You are valuable. We see you and we hear you. And I'm Mitch Race, and I help middle aged to seasoned professional men who are distracted, unclear, and don't know their value gain clarity and vision so that they can become the best version of themselves while earning their desired high level income to match their image. I want to welcome you all to the Mitch Race podcast here on Saturday mornings. And again, thank you for spending your Saturday morning with me and today with us. And I mean us because it's a very, very, very special us in this. I have an amazing guest who's going to tell us some of her story and I'm sure also touch on some of the things that the self image and esteem of women undergo, that all of the various challenges. And she's going to present a viewpoint that I think you need to hear. Um, Wait till you hear this. So it should frame a hopefully positive and valuable podcast. We're about to go right into it. But before that, I'm going to personally share her bio with you, if I may. Marianne Cadet is a native of the Bahamas with Haitian heritage. She is an attorney of 12 years' experience and has practiced in the areas of criminal defense, employment, and family law. She has been serving in the capacity of a public defender for the last 7 years and has had the distinction of being the first female public defender in the Bahamas. Whoa, that is big time. She is a proud daughter, a sister, an aunt, a godparent, and friend. She loves the Lord and is active in her church and serves in their singing group, the Redeemed Sisters. She is passionate about justice and helping persons become their best version of themselves. Amen to that. Consequently, from childhood to adult, she has dedicated her time in the service of others through various service organizations dealing with children and adults. She has held numerous leadership roles and has been recognized for her outstanding service. She enjoys music, traveling, singing, and trying different foods. She believes you can accomplish anything you set your mind to with grit and determination, firmly believing that with God, all things are possible. And that is just, I just love reading that. And I'm just so filled with uh, just I'm so humbled. I just feel so blessed to have her here with us. And in bringing her on, I just want to tell you this: that we are friends, we are colleagues, and I'd like to say a few words about her. I'd like to say that Marianne is brilliant, humble, more than capable, more than qualified, and she's such a quiet storm of a person. She's absolutely knowledgeable and resourceful in her own podcast, the Marianne Cadet podcast, which is on Saturday mornings at 11:30 a.m., where she covers rejection, esteem, and freedom. I want you to please join me in welcoming her to the stage. Please welcome Miss Marianne Cadet.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you so much for this invitation. It is an honor to be on your podcast. As I've told you in person, you are such an encouraging person. You inspire others, and I do not believe that anyone can be around you without feeling inspired to be their best self. And you're just a great overall person. And so I am very grateful that I have this opportunity to be on your podcast and so that we could have this valuable conversation.
I want to thank you for that, Marianne. And I have seen you grow. I've watched you grow from podcast to podcast, and you take on all of the issues of rejection and esteem and self image also. And you do so much justice, and you bring so much value to the table in who you are and your calling, your walk, and just your talk, just everything about you really speaks that you are you're aware of what's going on in self-image. You're aware of what's going on also personally. You're aware of what's going on spiritually. And I just had to have you on. And especially after being on your podcast, and you handled that so skillfully, I absolutely know that I have the right person in the building that is now here to talk about some of the challenges and some of the issues and some of the things that maybe perhaps bedevil women. And
Thank
I,
you
I
much.
just I really I just couldn't think of a better person to really kind of like to do that with at this point in time. But there are others out here, just to be sure, and we're going to have that valuable discussion. We're going to continue that and keep it going. I just wanted you to be the first on this one. Um, so you have been serving in the capacity of a public defender for the last 7 years, and you have
Yes.
the distinction of being the first female public defender in the Bahamas. That's powerful. You want to tell me some? You want to talk to us about that experience?
Well, at first I really did not take note of it, but it is an honor. I didn't take note of it until someone pointed it out to me. But I always wanted to be a public defender. And so I was encouraged about 7 years ago from a dear friend of mine to apply
Mm.
for the position. I did not have all of the qualifications as in experience. They were asking for about 5 years experience, and I had about four. But nevertheless, they selected me. And so I am grateful for the opportunity to serve and to be the first. It is an honor. It is a privilege. Not many persons um, have their dreams work out the way that it did for me. And I'm just really grateful. We now have two other female public defenders, and I am doing my best to represent our office and represent females well. So it's an honor and a privilege.
That's amazing. Do you have like young ladies running up to you and women just in general, kind of like, hey, I know who you are, I know what you do, and can you help me, and can do you, I'm sure that you just explain to me what that must be like.
I have persons that come to me, or persons who may have seen something I've done in the newspaper
Right.
or somewhere, and I'm always honored and grateful for them to appreciate anything that I have done. And besides law, from since I was a young girl, normally people would come to me. They'd come to me for advice, or if they wanted a push or encouragement to accomplish something, persons would
Hmm.
come to me. I've served, like you said, in different organizations, mentoring young persons, and just being an encouragement to women, young persons, that they can go ahead and they can accomplish their goal, not to set the limits on themselves. So, yeah, that's how it's been for me.
So I think that what that tells me is that you were able to combat your self-limiting beliefs, and that is one of the things possibly that gave you an edge because you only had 4 years. Did you have any self-limiting beliefs at that point in time? Because you said, "Oh, they're looking for five, but I only have four."
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
think it for me, it started from a early age,
Hmm.
and I speak a lot on grit because I believe I had to have it. I had to have it from an early age.
Right.
From when I was 7 years old, I experienced rejection for the first time. It was
Mm.
by someone who I respected and trusted, and basically they were telling me that I was not deserving, like I didn't deserve success in life. And for a child hearing that, that's not something that you would expect. And I came
Right.
from an environment where my parents, they always told me, my parents and siblings, they always told me I could do anything I put my mind to. And so they always believed in me. I had my faith even as a child. I believed in God. And I had such a loving environment. So it was the first time for me um, experiencing rejection and a little bit of hate.
Mm,
And
mm,
so at that point in time, I had to make a decision as to which person am I going to listen to? Am I going to listen to what this person is saying as to who I am, or am I going to listen to what I was told about who I am and what I accepted for myself as who
right.
I am? And so when I made that decision, I made the decision to accept what I thought.
Mm,
And even though I made the decision, I'm very proud as a child that I was able to make that decision. However, there was still some residues that I had to deal with as an adult. But that incident inspired me to be the person to speak for others, because I would have wanted someone to speak for me at that point in time, and encouraged me to be the person to push others to know that they can accomplish what they put their minds to, not to limit themselves, and um, to know that they are deserving. So when that happened at 7 years old, it planted a seed of doubt that didn't exist. You
mm,
know, kids are so
sure.
courageous. They have the most beautiful and positive outlook. And so that was the start of the limiting belief. I had a question. I had to ask myself a question. Am I not deserving as this person is saying? And so as an adult, I carried it with me. But I had challenges between a child and two adults where the situation came again. It wasn't someone telling me that I cannot accomplish, but it was a challenge. And so I had to say to myself, just because I have the challenge doesn't mean that I cannot overcome or I cannot accomplish. And so um, I had to push my way and show persons that even it doesn't matter where you come from. That doesn't stop you from being able to achieve success. It doesn't matter where you start. And I've always been that person to overcome the boundaries. And so when 7 years ago, when the position came up, my friend knew that I always wanted to be a public defender. And I saw that I didn't have all of the requirements for um, extent of experience. I was like, man, I don't have the experience. I don't have enough experience, because they were asking for 5 and I had to go 4. And my friend, she pushed me and she said, you know what, I'm going with you and we're going to put in this application. So I'm very, very grateful for my friend. I went on the interview, and they obviously felt that I had what it took to be in that position. But yes, I still had that limiting belief.
Mm,
But different stages in life, you will encounter challenges, and you have to overcome them. And it
absolutely.
doesn't. Yeah, so it doesn't mean that thoughts are not going to happen or not going
Sure.
to occur, but you have to combat those thoughts. And you have, for other persons who have experienced limited beliefs, you have overcome so many things. If you can write down a list of things that you've accomplished, so many things. I always said, people, you learn how to walk, you learn how to talk, you learned how to drive, you went from high school, there were different challenges. And so you are an expert in overcoming challenges, and you need to remind yourself that, and having a different outlook also always helps um, with the limiting beliefs. So yeah,
Yeah, I and well said. I agree with you on the self-learning beliefs because what happens is, and writing the list, by the way, I think is excellent. You have to kind of go back into your past so you can understand how powerful you are in the present and how valuable you are for your future.
yeah,
And when you start looking at what it is that you've accomplished, what it is you've done, how you've overcome all of the obstacles, all of the challenges, and all of the things that either A, you've said to yourself, or B, other people have said to you, it acts as this rocket fuel
yeah,
to kind of continue to take you where you need to go. Because one of the things that you had mentioned was that uh, we stop sometimes. We kind of like we you know we pause, and we just don't remember, or we
yeah.
just tend to forget. uh and we have to sometimes just go we have to go back
Yes,
to
that's true.
where we were so that we can go forward. One of the interesting things that you had mentioned was that it was a friend who actually uh had suggested that you go further. She was encouraging to you.
Hmm.
And is she also in the in the legal field?
Yeah, she's a prosecutor. She's also in the legal field here.
Wow.
Hmm.
So from one prosecutor to another,
So
to the
yeah, we're on opposite sides, but yeah.
public defender,
Hmm.
not prosecutor. Uh, two amazing positions.
Hmm.
There seems to be that is probably one of the better stories that we hear sometimes in society. And there seems to be a society wide opinion that women dislike themselves and sometimes dislike others, the other women. Do
Hmm.
you think this is more true now, or are women getting better with each other? Where do you think this belief comes from?
Well, I think it's getting better. It's getting
Hmm.
better. So the truth is, it does exist, and I think the belief comes from even as a child. How you were raised. You know, if you were raised to love, if you were raised to believe in yourself, that will come out. That will come out. And so um, the dislike of another, it comes from that space where you feel like you have to compete. You, if you are secure in who you are, you don't feel like you have to compete with others. And so once you're secure, you are able to accept different persons, and so that comes from young, from how you were raised, from your self-image. It affects how you treat others, the self-image that you have, because it will come out whether you are voluntarily choosing for it to do, but it will come out. What you have within is going to come
Yes,
out.
I believe that
And
too.
so yeah, and so that's where the hate, or you're not able to encourage others, um, because you feel as if maybe it takes away something from you. Or sometimes a lot of women, they're in competition for validation. And so if they see this person is getting more attention than themselves, and they feel um, awkward about that, is because they are have not really validated themselves. Um,
Mm.
there is going to be in everybody's life where this person wins. You may not be the winner at this point in time, or there's always going to be someone who might be according to societal views, who might be prettier, or may always be someone who's smarter. And sometimes that person might be you when it comes to somebody else. But it doesn't mean or take away from your value or the other
Mm.
person's value. And so, definitely childhood, from the childhood and different experiences, and especially persons who've experienced rejection, and you're trying to get other person's attention to validate you.
Sure.
So yeah.
Mm. So lack of validation. Um, there was one more that you had said. There was lack of validation,
And
competition. Yeah, people,
comparing yourself and
women competing and not knowing the value. Uh, those are some of the things. What are some of the other things that you think rob women of their self-esteem?
well, definitely, I would say not learning to love and accept themselves.
Self-love.
Yeah, self love. Even from childhood, and I know we're from different countries, but I know it exists everywhere. You see it in schools, where persons can be bullied. There's this pressure to fit in to a certain group, and what happens as a child, I really am in strong belief that it shapes your self-image, because like I
Right.
had spoken to you about, when I did the survey, 90 plus percent said that they experienced rejection for the first time as a child, you know. And
Huge
so,
number.
yeah, and so as a child where you are faced with, you wanting to fit in, or even with body image, because body image is a part of your self image, where a
Yes.
person are well looked down, or say, or persons is saying, well, you're too big, or you're too small, or even colorism, all of that. And so when someone is not comfortable in their own skin, so from an early age, is attacking that person's attacking them in reference to accepting themselves, whether they find themselves to be valuable. And so
Mm.
I feel that that the societal views it in reference to body image, it affects women's self-esteem. And then you also have the other societal pressures, where persons say, as a woman, you need to be married, you need to be in a relationship, you need to have
Right.
children, and if you don't have those, then maybe there's something wrong. Again, you are attaching your value to something outside of yourself, you know. And I have great respect for marriage. I have great respect for mothers, um, but we are all valuable, and we all contribute. And when you can look at it that way, it takes away from the hate, and you have a more positive self-esteem. And there are other pressures that, especially if it's relating to employment. Sometimes, especially in maybe in the legal era, people have this view that you have to be so rough and loud and so
Mm.
extremely aggressive. Um, but that is not so. You need to be able to um, argue your grounds well, make sure persons can understand, make sure persons can relate. And so when it comes to professional women, um, there's this view that you have to be so like a rock, and you don't have to be that. So I definitely believe, mindset, environment, having the right type of people around you, um, taking time for you to analyze your trauma, your past traumas, being honest with yourself in that, being vulnerable, forgiving persons who've hurt you, forgiving yourself, and then investing in that healing journey, and definitely giving yourself grace. It's a journey. It's not a marathon. It's not a race. It's a journey. Okay, so I think those things affect, and those are things that I mentioned would help um, persons with women with self esteem, and I think men too. Some of those things, interrelated, but those
Yeah,
are the things. Yeah.
yeah. No, no, they are.
Mhm.
It's amazing how when you talk about self-image, that we, depending upon who you are and I guess where you're coming from, you might think it's, oh, it's a self-image, it's a man thing, and or or it's a woman. It's actually a person. It's a people thing. We
Mhm.
all have self-image. It's just that there are some groups of society that maybe it's affected differently. Women are definitely affected differently than men. Men can be very, very heavy-handed in some of the things that do rob women of their self-esteem. And that's another conversation, of course. But those are things that, even within the self-image of a man, that we have to get right on the inside of us so that we don't do that. And that's not saying that every man does that, because that's absolutely not true. And not every woman has low self-esteem. But we have to acknowledge that as being one of the things that will rob a woman of their self-esteem. And I'm all too familiar with that because of my relationship with my stepdad, and my stepdad's relationship with my mom. I think at the very end of everything, though, uh, because she won, she had victory. Because she was a victorious woman, she understood that there was she had whatever it is that she had to maintain. There were things that she had to do in her life. She definitely had to take care of me. She had to make sure I was fed. She definitely wanted to make sure that I was safe. And in doing so, I think that you can either develop a character of strength as a woman, or you can develop the character of, I just can't do this anymore and I give up. And I could understand the giving up of that. And I'm not going to say that in her, maybe in her heart or in her mind somewhere, that she just was like, I just can't do this anymore. But I do believe that she was strengthened by the Lord. And I also felt that she had her own strength, growing as she grew up from her childhood to be a woman. My mom was born in 1928. My mom left the planet in 1990. How else could you go in life without getting that strength and resiliency in your
Yes.
life to be able to go on after you have had issues with abuse with men? And coming up in the 60s and 70s, there were different times. The 70s were probably more empowering. Going into the 80s, you started seeing all those changes and in women's rights and things. Um, but I guess this is kind of like now a kind of a good segue now with you. So I'm speaking about my mother and my own personal uh, understanding of self-image through the eyes of my mother and my stepdad. But thinking back to your mother, if it's okay, and your grandmother, what do you think were their greatest strengths and gifts?
Well, both of my mom and my grandmother, they came from Haiti. My grandmother was not raised with her mom. She was raised with her aunts because her mom died during childbirth. And she had 10 children. And so obviously that's a lot.
It's a lot of
A
children.
lot that's a lot to deal with. But just watching my mom, she had such a loving mom, person who always encouraged her, helped to build um, self confidence. And so I would say from my grandmother, I think one of her greatest strengths was just in being a mom, leadership, humility,
Hmm.
and just being a developer, because you had developed the minds of your children. And I think that's what helped my mom to be the courageous person, because her strength is being very courageous. because my mom came to left Haiti at 16 years old without her parents' permission. Being a female back then, it was only males that would go on those voyages, and
Mm,
she wanted to help her family, and so she went on a boat and risked her life to be able to do so. So she is one of the most courageous persons I've ever met. One of the most
courage.
loving persons, yeah, and grit. She always speaks about making a way, being able to adjust, and not that persons don't have their challenges, but definitely learning who you are, and loving yourself. So that's what I would say would be their greatest strength, and then treating people properly,
Yes,
treating people with love,
absolutely.
treating people with love. And I think I kind of got that from my mom, because she would go to the extent for others. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I I couldn't agree with you more. All of those gifts I see in you, and those strengths I see in you, and I see in so many other women in our community out here, and we have amazing, amazing women in our community. And I do believe that that's where it kind of starts. It does start with it does start with the parent. It starts with the mother. It starts with the sister. It starts with the aunt. And if somehow or another, just like we need figures sometimes for our men, it starts with our fathers. It starts with our brothers. It starts with our uncles. It starts with people who know how to navigate and communicate, and who do love and who know how to love. When we can do that, I think then that's how our self image is able to be well supported. So we grow up and we have a very, very healthy idea, a very healthy vision for
Yes.
who we need to be. And
Right.
I've enjoyed this discussion, Marianne. I really, really
Me
have.
too. Me too.
You've unpacked a ton of value, and given us all something to think of. And I think that we need to kind of we need to revisit this again. And I would love to do that if you would do me the honor to be the guest, be a guest again,
Definitely, definitely. I'm
because there's a
down.
lot. Yeah, you're down. I love it. Okay, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And I again, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for all of the value that you have brought to this audience, that you bring to your own weekly podcast. Um, Spend a minute to tell people how to get a hold of you and what you're specializing in, and let them know how you can help, please.
Okay, so you can find me on Facebook, Marianne Cadet, same spelling, and you could find me also on Instagram. I just started YouTube, so you could follow me on YouTube as well. But I have a podcast. It airs on Facebook on Saturdays at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time, and my experience is that I help persons who have suffered from rejection or limiting belief move from being in chains to liberty, so that they can live their best life without asking for permission. And so I specialize in criminal defense as a public defender. So I do Supreme Court and Court of Appeal matters mostly. It's me.
Amazing. So I want to encourage you all to follow Miss Marianne Cadet on Instagram, follow her on Facebook, follow her on YouTube, and listen to her podcast. Okay, I'm going to be there at 11:30. I should be there, and you'll learn a lot. You'll you'll really be glad that you took the time out to learn more about her journey, and how she can help you. So I just wanted to say to you all, thank you so very, very much for tuning into the Mitch Race podcast. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, and it's been a real blessing. I want to thank you all for being there each and every week. I'm going to encourage you at this point in time to please reframe your vision, reframe your value, and reframe your victory. We'll see you next week, and have an awesome, awesome Saturday, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you, Marianne.